Okay, let's talk about the supplies we need for watercolors. We need brushes, we need paint, paper towels, something to put water in, and so forth. So let's talk about the palette first. You need some kind of palette. The bigger palette, the better. Now I've laid out some tubes of color here, and what I do is I just take the entire tube and squeeze it out. Here I've got some Quin gold, one of my favorite colors, and I'm just going to put the whole thing out there. You will find that that method is pretty typical. It's the method actually mentioned in the book here that I'm using. This is You Can Paint Vibrant Watercolors in 12 Easy Lessons by Yuko Nagayama. I didn't say that right. Yuko Nagayama, who is, there's our bananas from the other day. She does very beautiful drawings and paintings. But she also does pretty much the same thing I do, which is just take your tube of paint and squeeze it all out. As soon as we wet it down, it's ready to go again. And then I have all the colors that I need right away. I will try to put a list of the colors I use, but actually that's not terribly important because you can use almost any set of colors you want. Get a set of 12 colors, 20 colors, that'll be fine. Now what I do is I set green. Like I said, what I do is I squeeze the whole thing out and it's ready to go as soon as it gets wet. I do keep my yellows separate. That's just me. I have found over time that I am so sloppy I will get other colors mixed together. Most of the time it doesn't matter because the colors are so powerful that they overcome a little bit of mixing. Yellow does not do that. The yellow watercolors are very weak. Just a second. Alright, so having said that the yellows were quite weak, I keep them in a separate thing, and here I have laid out some new Gamboge, which is a reddish yellow. Lemon yellow is on the other end. It's the kind of a greenish yellow. I always get these tube colors. These are Cadmium. You can get any kind you want. Dick Blick. Robert Smith. Robert Smith Quin Gold is one of my favorite colors, and I just squeeze the whole tube out and squeeze it all into that area, my containing area. And let's see, this is Quin Rose. Yeah, I'm going to wait on that because I've got quite a bit of Quin Rose already in there. Okay, so big palette, get as much space as you can. Don't get little saucers. If you're going to get little saucers, get a whole bunch of them because you need as much space to work with as possible. This idea of squeezing everything out, everybody does that. Not everybody, but 90% of the watercolor people you'll meet do that. It's even mentioned in this book where This is our Yuko Nakayama book, and there she is squeezing the colors out. She just squeezes them all out, same as everybody else. When you wet them down, they're ready to go, no matter how dried out they might look. You need some kind of board. You could use anything. I've got a big hunk of plywood. I'm using it for a table, but I could use it, and I have used it to paint large watercolors on. This is foam board that I have put Liquitex polymer medium on both sides and then duct tape my edges. I'm ready to go. That big piece of white and at the end of the table there is actually another hunk of foam core. And if I was to turn that around, you'd see that it has a start of a painting on it. That's, I believe that's 40 by 60 inches. So you might say, well, how do I get a piece of paper 40 by 60? Well, actually you can buy paper that big. I think that's the biggest I've seen that you can buy. And it'll run you, at least $80. However, you can buy the same paper I buy, which is 140 pound cold press. I either buy Arches or Fabriano Artistico. Those are the two brands I buy. I can also get them in rolls. So I get a big roll of paper. You can get them 48 inches wide or 51 inches wide, and then, 10 to 11 yards long, right? So I can just unroll a bit of paper there, cut it to size. Now it'll naturally have that roll to it, so you kind of have to wet it down and let it relax, and then you can staple it to your board or tape it if that's how you decide to do things. I staple everything with my staple thing here. Palette, boards, water can, paper towels, something to spritz with if you need to, brushes. Don't buy expensive brushes. I've had teachers tell me, oh, you should buy the most expensive brush you can find. Dude, you can pay $75 up to $500 for a sable brush. I've got a few sable brushes. I don't like them that much. I think the cheapest one I got in here is probably $50 to $75, and they stay in the box. They stay in the container. I don't even use them. What I use is Squirrel. It works just as good. There's only one. It holds as much water, keeps its point nicely. The only thing is what's called spring. So with the sable brush, when I press down like that, as soon as I lift it up, it springs back. Okay, it comes right to a point. When this brush is wet on Squirrel and you push down, it stays pushed down. But all you do is you swish it around in the water and boom, you're right back where you were. And I think maybe that was $20, $24 for a size 12. That was probably about $25 for a 3/4 inch. They call that a tongue, I believe. They call it an oval. Okay, fine. Synthetic brushes are just as good. They don't hold as much water, but they can sure get you through the first 2 or 3 years of your watercolor painting. And in fact, this little guy, this might be worth 50 cents. He was in a pack. I think there was 6 in there for $5. And I happened to find one that was squared off, and I love it. Because when I want to get down close to the edge of something, I'm using this guy to make a nice clean edge. And in fact, I keep looking for them, and I can't find them anymore because all the new ones are pointed, and that's not what I want. I want something long with a squared off edge. And I've bought a couple. I don't know where they are. The other kind of brush you can get, which is kind of useful, this is, you could probably make your own. This is one that's been chopped off on purpose so that I can scrub paint up out of it. And I also have, this isn't, oh yes it is. This is the same kind of thing. It's a brush, but it's been cut off just so you can, so it's real stiff. And I think they make them in other forms, you know, like some kind of plastic nib or something. So, just get brushes that you like, as cheap as you want to. If you want to spend a little more money, because I can get like these nylon things, I can get a pack of 6 for $5. This probably $25. So if you get into it and you really like something that holds a little bit more water, Squirrel. That's a good brush. Okay. Additionally, if you want, after you get into this a bit, if you want to go to watercolor pencils, those are useful. I use those at the end of a painting. I don't use them in the beginning. I use them at the end. So let's say I have a green that it's not bright enough. It's dried. It looks dull. I can take a bright green watercolor pencil, rub the pencil over it, and bring that color back up. Now, a watercolor pencil is basically just color in a pencil form. There's no wax in it like there would be in regular colored pencils. So when you put it on the paper, you can touch it with a wet brush and it'll begin to dissolve. So you might find a lot of different uses for that, or like I do, I just brighten the color up with the pencil. That's about it. There's some other things you could get. These are watercolor grounds. I'll eventually talk about these. If you wanted to, you could patch things. If you made a real terrible mistake, you could paint on them. If you see this stuff, it's just white. It's kind of like white gesso. He's on there real tight. Never mind. And then this stuff. So let's say masking fluid I want to use. You would use masking fluid to keep a white space. So let's say I made a white circle. I covered it with masking fluid, which looks a lot like rubber cement. Okay, that'll waterproof that circle. Then I can just splash paint over the whole thing. I have to wait till the masking fluid is dry. Then I splash paint over it. I wait till the paint is dry. And then this stuff just rubs right up. Just comes right up and leaves me a nice pretty circle. Trouble is, it's horrible for the brush. It's almost impossible to get out of there unless you've got some of this stuff. A Goo Gone, that's wonderful. I get that at Ace Hardware. And it'll clean that brush right out. Anything else? Spritzer I probably mentioned. I think that's about it. I'll try to put a list of the colors I use. They're not important. Get yourself a pack, a starter pack of 12 to 20 colors. Everything you will need will be in that first batch of colors. And then you will find colors that you like as you go along. For instance, my Quin Gold that I just love, it doesn't come in any special, you have to order it. So, thank you very much.